Hello and welcome to Chats, a television podcast, season 16, Couch Madness. 16 shows enter, one emerges is the show we will watch for the remainder of our season. Who will win? Who will lose? And who will die? My name is Magellan, and it looks like my co-host brought a bag, and there's a lot of kinky stuff in here.
Ooh.
It's Alan.
Ooh, I have. Let's see here. Oh, it's slimy. Oh,
Slimy stuff.
it's a waffle maker. Don't plug it in. It's not safe to
Waffle
plug
stuff.
Speaking of kinky stuff, I've been listening to a lot of Chapel Rowan lately. Thanks to you, Magellan. Thanks to you recommending her on the Spotify Wrapped Patreon
You're
episode.
welcome.
And she's got some good songs. Did you know that she's a queer woman? And makes that abundantly obvious. I love to see it. She has a song about that, which is wild. I forget which one it is. It's the really good one. And in other news, other things that I do know more about is that I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you here. This is a big one tonight. This is a big one tonight.
I'm gonna barf.
A tough matchup. Unlike my last week in fantasy basketball. I'm not going to talk about it for too long.
Give us the quick update, though. Because there's also a big matchup coming up there.
The Vancouver Vampires had a lovely week, an amazing week. Won, was it 8 out of my 9 scoring categories?
Yeah.
And we're facing some interesting competition this week. Right, Alan?
I don't want to talk about it. You're already winning by 4, bro. I don't even want to look.
Oh,
at
really?
This. I didn't look. Yes, Magellan and I are finally in an epic matchup suitable for this episode of Couch Madness. We are against each other in fantasy basketball this week, so good luck to you.
Yeah, and the person who wins this week actually gets to choose the winner of Couch Madness. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, we bypass the whole process.
It's done. It's just over.
Really a shame because I'm totally gonna pick. Hold on, what's the worst show on the bracket? I'm actually just gonna pick Lost and spite the entire fandom.
Right.
I'm gonna loop around.
Anyway, we are not starved for great shows this week because in a way this kind of feels like the finals. There are obviously a lot of other really strong contenders left to be considered in round 2, but two fan favorites clashing: Xena Warrior Princess and Quantum Leap. For this week we watched Xena Warrior Princess Season 1 Episode 2, Chariots of War, and Quantum Leap Season 1 Episode 3, Star-Crossed, June 15th, 1972. And because these two are fan favorites, because there are champions of each, and because I can't claim to be a neutral party here, we are bringing on the guest I know who risked his life for my son. That's Scott Bakula. That's who I let into my podcast. It's Ryan from Spin Polish and Yum Yum. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you for having me on. And it was so wonderful to be living in the moment of hearing about the fantasy basketball. Usually that gets a liberal use of the 15-second skip from me, but I'm here today to live in it. I couldn't skip it in real life, but hopefully you at home have that option. I'm kidding, of course, I'm kidding. But I'm glad to be here, both of you. I know what I just said, it gave you a sick puppy dog look, but stop it, please. I'll never scratch behind your ears again if you keep looking at me like that, because I talk smack about your basketball love.
That's funny.
Please scratch behind my ears, Ryan.
Welcome to the party, Ryan. So, am I correct? I mean, we always like to ask our guests why they're on a particular episode. You love Quantum Leap. That's why you're here, right? Or are you a fan of both of these shows? What's your skin in the game?
What's my deal? I love Quantum Leap. Xena is something I'm very neutral on. It is something that I grew up with as well. It was always on TV. I don't know if that was the case for you two. We're both around the same, we're all around the same age, but here it was always just one of those afternoon shows, or like, hey, it's on a Sunday afternoon. It's Xena. She's running around and screaming and jumping and ooh, sexy, and oh, isn't that fun? And oh, ooh, jumping around and explosions and horses. And Quantum Leap was also a show that was regularly on as well. And I always just kind of gravitated towards Quantum Leap because it has such an interesting premise and how it uses its premise to give us a myriad of different types of stories. Ones that, if were in another type of show, I probably wouldn't give that much of a chance, but because it has that certain special charm that Quantum Leap brings to the table, I do. And Xena is just one of those shows too where you knew somebody who loved Xena. You knew somebody who loved Charmed. You knew somebody who loved Buffy. Like, there's always those type of shows, and I kind of put that in that stable. And it's so hilarious because I don't think I've ever seen any of Hercules, and I didn't realize until much later that she's a spin-off, because I think her show's the more popular one given time nowadays, right? I think people care more about Xena.
I would assume so, yeah.
Yeah, the little bit of reading I did suggested that it's like it started out about equal and then went on to greatly surpass Hercules, yeah.
And Lucy Lawless is a treasure. She's been a part of so many projects. She's in Battlestar Galactica. She's in the Spartacus show. She's in everything. Like, hey, it's a mark of quality if Lucy Lawless is here. And that's kind of fun because Lucy Lawless and Dean Stockwell, who's in Quantum Leap, both get to be in scenes together in Battlestar Galactica. So that's some fun there. So he was the reason, Dean Stockwell, that I went back to watch Battlestar Galactica, because I'm such a huge fan of Dean Stockwell as an actor. He's even the reason why I watched some Enterprise, because he pops up in an episode there to play off of Scott Bakula, because why wouldn't you? And he's the reason I watched one of his last performances was in NCIS, because, again, Scott Bakula, so why not get them together again? But yeah, I'm a big lover of Quantum Leap, but Xena is one where I'm kind of neutral on it. Like, it was always on. I watched it, but it never left me, like, thriving as much as other shows. It was always just like, hey, that was a nice piece of fluffy entertainment. My brain turned off. I saw some fighting, some sexy ladies, some creatures sometimes. That's my relationship with both of the shows, pretty much.
Cool. Thank you for laying that out for us here at the top. I think it's a good balancing perspective, because I've been, very irresponsibly championing Xena for the last few episodes. So at least people can trust that we are representing the variety of perspectives here. Should we start talking about these two shows? Does that sound exciting to everybody?
Let's do it.
As cool. Big Kev would say, I'm excited.
Great. So we are going to start with Xena. It is the lower seeded show of the two. Xena was seeded 12th on the bracket, I believe, and defeated the higher seeded Veronica Mars in round 1. So as I said before, the episode that we watched was Xena Warrior Princess Season 1, Episode 2, Chariots of War. The teleplay was written by Adam Armis and Nora K. Foster, with story credits for Josh Becker and Jack Perez. It was directed by Harley Cokeless, aired on September 11th, 1995. Alan, what happened in Chariots of War?
I'm glad you asked. In this episode, Xena is wounded defending a group of farmers and taken into Darius' home to recover. Gabrielle, waiting for her, is rescued by the son of the warlord who is terrorizing the farmers. Hijinks ensue on Xena Warrior Princess. So I was looking forward to this, right? No more setup. Xena, it's a standard fare episode of Xena. What do we got? What are the tenets of a good Xena episode? We've got, as Ryan mentioned earlier, some great horse combat. We've got some wacky action. We've got some comedy. But right out the gate, I want to say that what I liked about this episode was it's focused on interiority and the feelings of the characters without kind of like teasing them or making them feel weak. Like the men, for example, who are emotional in this may, run the risk of being outed from their society, but are like respected by the cast of the show in a way that I really liked. And there's a lot of gender role flipping and honestly, solid freaking ep. That's what I got to say about it.
What did you think of it, Ryan?
I was bored to tears, honestly, but it's one of those episodes that's so familiar to me. This is not a bad episode. Sure. This is a standard episode of 90s to early 2000s television, even to the 80s. I could list you a whole myriad of episodes from Farscape, TNG, on and on it goes, even Quantum Leap, that are similar to this. I was yearning for more, and I went out of my way. I watched the previous episode because I wanted to kind of just get the feel of things, and I thought that one was way more fun. Utilize the premise and the cast much better. And for me, another thing that I love about Xena, and I think most people do, is the central relationship between the two characters. That's the interesting connective tissue of both shows that we're covering. Is there is no large ensemble, it is just two people that will go into scenarios involving characters we will most likely never see again or once in a blue moon. And this episode, they're separated for most of it, and I didn't get much out of either one of their stories. I like Xena's one more because it made me not as embarrassed as what was happening in the bar, where a lot of the stuff at the bar was just like, hey, pretty blonde lady, talk to me. And she's like, uh-oh, I better work my way out of this one. And I just found that lackluster. And again, you've seen this story. The random village of hippies or farmers need saving, Mad Max 2 or there was that episode of The Mandalorian in season 1. Like, you can have it be excellent and you can have it be bad and you can have it just be in the middle. I found this one pretty in the middle overall.
Megan, what about you?
Yeah, I think I really enjoyed the episode, and I'm acknowledging what Ryan's saying there, that it's like not doing wildly new or unusual things. And to be honest, for as much as we're saying this is an adventure show, like, it looks like we're in the same town and in the same bar from the pilot episode a little bit. Like, there's just not quite enough visual distinction. But I think, Alan, what I liked about what you were saying is the way that we take this like pretty classic tropey feeling adventure tale episode where it's like, okay, I'm going to stop in on the town and I'm going to visit with this like domestic foil who I have like a romantic connection with, and I consider maybe I just throw away the adventuring life and live here forever. But what I liked about it is it's a gender flipped version of that dynamic in the way that we usually see it. And I don't know if that necessarily in and of itself like brings new things out of the thematics of the story, but there was something like fresh and enjoyable to me about this being like a dad who's nursing her back to health and caring for his kids and saying, you don't need to fight, and you can what does he say? He says like tending to an injured woman isn't an act of war, and he's like got this sort of radical empathy for her, and she is the character who is having to like navigate her guardedness and aversion to commitment. And we get to explore a core thing for Xena as a character, which is like he says it to her, he says, are you so brave that you fear someone caring for you? Which I think is like a great way to help us understand what it is that Xena's really seeking on this journey, and to like put a female character in the position to be doing that was cool and interesting to me. And it gave me a sense that we're hopefully going to start to move into less tropey space, or we're going to be able to flip some of these tropes on their head a little bit more because we're approaching them in a slightly different way. So it was like familiar, comfortable, but unusual enough that I had a really good time watching it, I think is where I come out of it.
Yeah, both of these shows are very earnest, right? Like, we're going to talk about that a lot tonight, but they take their premises seriously. They commit to it. Some of the performances are hit or miss on both sides, but like, Xena is a show, at least this episode, about family and about violence and about cycles of violence wrapped up in a, as Ryan is saying, like kind of okay episode that does drag a little bit. I forgot. It's been so many months that I forgot that Xena's a 45-minute show. And I was like, oh, wow, we still have a whole act left to go? Like, oof.
Yeah, I forgot about that too. I was like, oh, I thought this was like a half hour, 20-minute. And then it was like, oh God, oh no, it's 45 minutes.
I really think this episode could have been shortened a little bit because they have all the good parts. There's just like some extra fighting, some extra like, we have to take Xena to the council, put the dress on. And I do think that the dress scene is like important, but they kind of drag it out a little bit. I don't know. Maybe they could have just trimmed a bunch of the different scenes and saved on, and then like focused on the fight scene and the revelations at the end and all that.
Well, that's the thing. This is an action series primarily.
Mm-hmm.
We would lament that they could have had more time spent on delving into character stuff or the themes, but this is a series where a huge appeal of it is the horse action, the fighting, the leaping around, the seeing the beautiful women kick the big burly men's asses, and the titillation as well. Like, let's not pretend like they weren't having a bit of a wink and a nudge to the audience of see, Lucy Lawless, we're hinting at nudity here with the arrow scene, and they play into that. Like, that's a huge part of it. While someone like myself, I want a bit more out of a show, and there's nothing wrong with this. Like I said, this is quality afternoon entertainment where you watch it, you have a great time, but you forget about it. Like, you're not going to retain this episode for very long. And the things that I want to like discuss about it are more like analytical things that the episode itself isn't entirely interested in, because it is also interested in other things like the action, like the fantastical. While for someone like me, I'm like, I wish that the episode challenged Xena more, because I still walk away from this thinking, like, coming on the side of she was right pretty much the entire time. Like, every warrior tactic she had in her mind was correct, and at the end she still kills the bad guy, and it's a good thing. Like, I still wish that there was more conversations between her and the farmer and his children, and maybe even, you know, the co-lead of this episode, of this series here too, to offer her point of view. But it's so spread out and so thin that the most I can give it is, like, I could like talk more heavily about it, but the reality is, when you actually watch the episode, that stuff isn't as present as it could be.
Yeah, I think that Xena is mostly, what I'm realizing, an incredible baseline or a canvas for them to paint on. And not every episode has to paint that perfectly, you know? And I do enjoy a lot about this episode. I don't want to be too negative myself, because, like, it's still worth acknowledging the male gaze, the lens of the creators, right? We talk about this show being a, like, feminist text and a queer text for a lot of reasons, but also we all felt weird about that scene where he's dressing the wound and we're cutting to Xena moaning, and this, like, there's such a sexuality to that, that I'm like,
right.
is this like everything you could get away with on cable and no more, no less? Like, really just unnecessary, like gratuitous, I guess. It's not as bad as it could be, but I still was like, oh God, really? Can we just...
It was as tastefully done as they could do it, but there's still... You know, there's a reasoning behind they're doing it. Like, heck, in one of the, I think it's in the opening credits, like, you see her jumping around with a sword and the camera is on the ground pointing up at her ass, where you get a hint of buttocks underneath her outfit. I'm like, yeah, that's... And that, when I saw that, I'm like, yeah, that's Xena. That's the show I remember. Right. The show that, hey, teenage boys, you're allowed to watch a show with a female lead because, look, that's kind of what I remember. Yeah.
God, the 90s. I wanted to call attention to, we talked about the sort of like gender role flipping of the gentleman the father sort of nursing Xena and being what is traditionally the role reserved for a woman in the show. But I also thought that the villain story with his father was, like, interesting enough. I think that they could have done a lot more with the whole, like, his brother died for promoting peace, but he wants to. And there's even like this sort of like lore implications that this group believes so strongly in the word of Ares that literally they cannot accept nonviolence as an option. Like, even if morally they believe that nonviolence is better, they're like, well, it doesn't matter, because Ares says that war is the way that we succeed in society. I thought that was at least hinting at something cool, if not cool itself.
I totally agree.
I found that plot compelling, and I actually enjoyed the Gabrielle plot and, like, her interactions with that guy. I do agree with Ryan that they really just hired 5 different extras to go, hey, what's up, it's good to see ya, and that was, like, not necessary. But I thought they gave a little more time to him than I was expecting, and I like the way that Gabrielle bonded with him over this whole, like, well, I ran away from my parents because I didn't like what they were telling me to do, and, you know, you could do that too. And in a way, even though there's not, like, direct scenes or direct conversation between Gabrielle and Xena in this episode, this guy at least is kind of a proxy for Xena in the way that Gabrielle is interacting with him, it feels like, because he is having a similar experience of, being raised within like a particular warrior culture, having certain expectations on him, and maybe he's like a much more unwilling participant than Xena was when she was evil. I don't know, because I haven't seen Xena when she was evil. But it did feel to me like, yeah, there's not direct conversation happening between Gabrielle and Xena, but in a way the two of them are interfacing with the other person's story and origins and beliefs through the men that they're speaking to in the episode. And then they kind of like bring that developed understanding of one another back when they come back together. So that was compelling to me. And it was also just kind of funny to me that the guy sort of looked like Mac Miller a little bit.
He does.
I had a hard time, honestly, when they had the bar scene where she is getting hit on by the guy with the eye patch, and then she points to what we know to be the let's call him the hero warrior guy, like the more noble one, the son. She's like, oh, he's my boyfriend. No joke. I didn't realize until a few scenes later that was the same guy, because they all look the same. Like, this is a show where it's like every like bad guy is just like leather bound, grubby, long haired, beard covered. Of like, I don't know. I couldn't tell them apart. So there was that. But I totally am on the same wavelength as you two with this. I, although was yearning for, and I honestly do think it is a weakness that we don't get the two leads in the episode together fully. I do like at least that their individual journeys strengthen their understanding of where they have been and where they are going when it comes to settling down, to having family or having lost family, by having relationships with two men who have gone through very interesting experiences when it comes to being people who have to lead their family, or people who have to take up the mantle of their family, which is interesting and great. I love that. And again, like I gave Magellan a clip, maybe you can play it, but it's like the clip at the end of the episode where basically they come together, Gabrielle and Xena, and it's like, hey, did you ever think about having a family? I love when those two actually get to talk about the themes of the episode together, because although it may be after school, especially at times, a little bit too on the nose, these two actresses, like when they're together, they're really good. When they're apart, it's a little iffy. Like, don't get me wrong, I think Gabrielle's good character, but that actress, she just doesn't gel well with all of the other characters as much. But when she's with Xena and Lucy Lawless, it's the magic that you're here for.
Yes.
Yeah. I have that clip right here.
Do you ever miss your family?
Sometimes, but not as much when I'm with you.
Oh.
So do you want me to drive?
Not on your life. Not on my life.
Hey.
You sure you don't want to ride?
Not till they make those things closer to the ground.
And you don't even need the visuals to sense how close they are, how friendly they are. Just the music accompanies them. It's something about the whole production becomes way more alive when these two are on the screen together, which is, again, major sticking point, because this episode isn't about that, sadly. And I'm like, oh, well, other ones are, so that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that at the beginning of the episode, they're like, riding together or walking together, and they're talking about stuff and morality. And I was like, oh my God, this is Xena. This is so good. And then they're apart for the whole episode doing like the Magellan, like the same theme and basically talking to each other, but not literally. And it's like the thing that makes Xena good is the relationship between Xena and Gabrielle. That's the sauce, you guys. Don't take us away from the sauce. I think that, Xena has her chance to do stuff in this. Gabrielle, I just think is very charming, but doesn't have a lot of depth with other people. But when they're together, the show hums like a freaking poem. It's night and day, honestly.
When Gabrielle's on her own, and even when she talks to Xena, you are harshly reminded of the era this is supposed to take place in and her role within it, because there's lots of talk of, I'm a woman, I should settle down and have children and fall into that role and character and position, and it's expected of me. But then when she's with Xena, or she's reminded of Xena, there's so much more opportunity for her in life than that, and that's really beautiful stuff. And we talked about like the Xena villain backstory, like, oh, you guys haven't seen evil Xena, and I do wonder if it was a misstep. If it was a misstep, because I did find it to be, that they suddenly revealed, oh, your son that died, I didn't murder him. He got murdered because of this other reason. I'm totally innocent of this. I kind of feel like it took the teeth out of what is a character who's on a redemption arc overall. Like, this series is basically seeing what was once a villain have to contend with what her past was and her actions, and will she do otherwise? And in this, it's like, oh, I didn't kill him, but I will kill you. It's like, well, I don't know. It feels so hypocritical in a way, and it feels insincere to me. And I get the point that they're trying to make of, like, both sons aren't abiding by your principles. Isn't that ironic? And you've been idolizing this one, but he was more like the one that you hate than you may have realized. But for the character of Xena and what she was even talking about, like being a warrior and having to stand up and kill people, even if it may be not honorable, I don't know. I think it really removes a lot of the hook of what this series is about, of a previous villain is now the hero.
Yeah, I agree with that. That did feel very convenient, and kind of tossed off in a way that bothered me, because it also cheapens the distance that the son character has to go to, like, fully commit to his ideals of being this pacifist, I'm gonna forgive people, I'm gonna try to find peace sort of guy. Because I think it would have been a lot more compelling to see him have confirmed, oh, she really did kill my brother. And it would have been cool too if it was like, oh yeah, he came to me in peace and I killed him. Like, we keep that detail, but Xena still is the one that kills him, and so he still gets that parallel and gets that challenge. But it's not as neat and tidy as, like, well, not only is it the brave thing to do to ask for peace, but it's also the easy thing to do. Like, yeah, it kind of makes it a little too simple. Because at first I thought that's what she was saying. Oh yeah, I know him. He tried to have peace, and I killed him for it. But it was his own man, or I don't know. Because also there's the whole bit when she's with the dad guy, and then one of the other guys is like, "Bro, that's Xena. We heard about her. She likes to do a lot of kills." And he says, I don't give a heck. She saved my son. That also is kind of cheapened by the show being like, well, Xena was evil, but she didn't kill people. Come on now. It wasn't that bad.
Yeah, it is a bummer in that way. And we do get to see Xena, kick some ass and take some names. And when she does kill the villain at the end, it's like, oh, killed him with his own sword. How ironic. And she even looks at the blade like, huh, and then just throws it on the ground. And like, that's cool and all, but if they were really wanting to hammer in on these messages, it just doesn't land as strongly as I would hope it would. And again, I know I may sound like a broken record here, but I also, you can play this other clip I gave you. I also loved when she did meet up with Gabrielle again, and she admits to certain things, and she even is willing to say, I'm sorry. And that's played as like a big moment for Xena. This is the second episode. I feel like maybe it's a little too early to kind of hit that note of like this warrior lady who's so stoic. And like, I feel like you need to maybe have put that a bit later and have her still have those rough edges. Well, here, I keep having to remember that Xena was a villain previously, because she's just so affable and likable. Like, literally, she does funny faces to the kids and is so sweet to them. And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
Love that scene, by the way, where she improvised
this is
the story.
The clip of her apologizing.
You couldn't send a messenger? I was worried sick.
I'm sorry.
Did you just apologize?
There's a farmhouse down the road. Nice people. I want you to wait for me there.
Where are you going? No, I'm not waiting around while you have all the fun.
Give that a slow fade.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally am with you on that one, Ryan. It's kind of this weird line that shows that are episodic like this have to walk, where sometimes the side characters, or like the guest characters, are the ones who have the most consequential arcs, because you can just sort of grow them and then say, okay, bye, I'm never going to see you again. Whereas your main characters, like, you're hemmed into, you can do these really characterful minor things. But if we did a story arc about Xena realizing that she should try to be more peaceful or whatever, then you either have to commit to that in the next episode or just pretend like it didn't happen. And so your hands are tied in a weird way to not make like big character movements. But yeah, it is definitely hard to believe that she was evil because all the kids love her so much.
So nice.
Yeah. I feel like you can do it. I feel like there are other examples of shows that are episodic one and dones that can still have that development of things. Heck, even the Quantum Leap episode that we're going to discuss, I can kind of point to how like our lead man is pretty selfish in that episode, and he was in the previous one, and yet as series goes on, things change. But one thing that fascinated me, I'm like, of course, duh, of course, why didn't I think of this? Which is, she gets put in a dress, right? That's our whole thing. It's like, hey, you can't attend this meeting in your warrior garb because you're going to scare people and they won't like you. Please wear a dress. Please conform to my het values. But I need you in this dress. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, there's going to be her in a dress and there's going to be some comedy about like, oh, this big muscly lady in the dress, which there is. But then, straight off the bat, all of the people like, fuck you, Xena, I don't care about you. What are you doing here? I don't want you in the meeting. And I was just like, oh, well, what was the point? Like, what was the entire point of this? And then the point came into play, which is they want her to have a funny action scene in the girly dress where she tears it so she can kick better and reminds you of, oh, this is a Sam Raimi produced thing. And that was the whole entire point. And then I was just like, oh, that's right. This is a show where they're going to set up whole entire like things, and in this case kind of bullshit, so that they can have a punchline in a way. So you had like a whole rigmarole about this dress, then for it to just only be, it's kind of funny. Wouldn't it be funny if you saw her in a girly dress kicking? And that's it. And I did find that the most camp moment of the episode. Like when I think of Xena, I think of it as a campy show. I think of it as a silly show. I think of it as like this ludicrous Sam Raimi produced show, and this episode didn't have really any of that until that scene.
Yeah, I think that this episode did not lean too hard into the camp. If I wanted anything out of it, it was camp like that. Not in that style. I think that was like a little corny, honestly. The ripping the dress, just because it's like tropey. I want more camp, like the big CG Poseidon in the theme song. I want us to get to that stuff as soon as humanly possible.
Yeah. I did like, I don't remember if it was that fight scene or I think it was a different one, but the one where she like jumps on the dinner table and seesaws the guy into the air and then he lands back down on it and she gets launched. That was like, I think that first fight where she gets hit by the arrow.
Yeah.
But that was pretty fun. But yeah, lots of fun fight stuff in here.
I have a piece of trivia. Oh, sorry, go on.
Oh, yes. Trivia.
I was going to say the father of the warrior, that actor would go on to work with Lucy Lawless in several episodes of the Spartacus TV show. So those two would get the chance to meet up again, and also in a period piece where she plays like a badass lady. In that case, she's a political wheeler and dealer, but I thought that was just something to note down because I was looking at these actors and like, are these anyone? Not really. He's the biggest one that I could find of like gone on to do stuff. So that was just something that I wanted to share of like, oh look, there's a bit of a connective thread for like a work that she would go on to do in the future that she's also very well known for.
Right. I was gonna say that's cool. Like her second most well known thing. It's like number 1 Xena, number 2 Spartacus, number 3 BSG. I think generally is Lucy Lawless's rap sheet, but like it's cool. I've heard like mostly good things about that Spartacus show. I've never watched it. I remember when it was on.
It's very horny.
Briefly, people talked about it.
Very horny.
I see. Is it like a Showtime show or something?
I have no clue. I know it's very horny, and it's like Roman stuff, and obviously, so you get to see Lucy Lawless boobs. So fun fact. Not a fun fact.
Fine. So the point I was going to make briefly, people know I'm on the Simpsons Meme Initiative. We've talked about it. I'm watching a lot of Simpsons episodes to understand all the memes and to enjoy a good show. I'm going to attempt, and I'm not promising I'll do this every time, but I'm going to attempt a Simpsons line that's relevant to each episode of a thing we watch right now, starting with this one.
We know which one.
Oh, which one are you guys thinking I'm gonna do first?
Well, it's
You
got to
don't.
be
You
the.
don't know the one I'm gonna do.
I didn't know Xena could fly.
Yeah, I didn't know Xena could fly.
It's like I
I'm not
can't.
Xena. I'm Lucy Lawless.
She can.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's classic. We talked about that one in the first Couch Madness round.
that was
for
months
the
ago.
Xena. True. So that one, I haven't got to that episode yet. Thank you. Oh, fuck, I gotta add it to the list. God damn it. This list will never get shorter. No, I actually one of my favorite clips from scenes from season 5 is from Homer Loves Flanders. Is when Bart hands Homer a thing that he thinks is a ticket to a show, and it's actually like a free wig from the store. And he's like, what would I do with a wig? And then he Dream Cloud him like with a Marge Simpson wig, and he goes, homie, and he goes, I don't need her at all anymore. And I think that's what the husband realizes when Xena leaves, and he doesn't need a wife. He can just be a father to his kids. He's like, he puts the Marge Simpson wig on.
That was very entertaining, and
A stretch.
I really
That was a big
loved
yikes
the
from me
argument.
personally, but I love the effort.
argument you laid out there.
Thank you. Thank you.
I love the
do
initiative.
That's fun stuff. Stray notes on this episode. Anybody have any other random thoughts?
No, I blew through it all, pretty much. I don't have any other observations other than I just found it a little bit too slow-paced. It's a story that is familiar. You've seen movies, you've seen books, you've experienced this before. This isn't the worst example of it, but nor is it a particular standout. And maybe I'm just too much of a lame wad here and wanting monsters and ghouls and creatures, but I am disappointed that none of those things showed up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Fair,
absolutely.
Fair. Alan, stray notes?
This episode reminded me of Birds of Prey in certain ways, and the tone and vibe of it, the pacing.
Interesting.
Xena, we said this before, but I really want to underline that Xena catching 2 arrows in her hands and then taking one to the stomach is actually so metal. And if this was a cartoon,
awesome.
She would have grown a 3rd arm and be like, huh, and got the 3rd arrow. And then I wrote, Xena is kind of like if I made the RuneScape RPs that I used to do into a TV show. Like, oh, and then we go into the zone, and then I like shoot you with arrows, and you catch them, but then I have to rescue you, and the bandit camp, all that stuff.
Really funny.
I used to have a house in Falador. It wasn't actually mine. It was like anyone could. Never mind. RuneScape.
I want to talk way more about this, but we're doing a Chats Nights later where we can talk about it.
Yes.
I really liked the opening conversation between Xena and Gabrielle. Xena says, I find the strongest trees in the forest stand alone. And then Gabrielle says, you don't have to be strong all the time, Xena. Sometimes it's good for the soul to be soft.
Beautiful line. Gay line. Also, not
gay.
true about the
Extremely
trees standing alone. That's not accurate. They make each other stronger. The roots connect together. Also, can we talk about how, obviously furthering my Xena and Gabrielle are both gay women theory. Or bi, probably gay. I don't know. The guy that Gabrielle falls in love with is like the most feminine man in this entire show so far. He's got beautiful, crisp blue eyes. He's got long hair. He's fucking beautiful. I don't know what to tell you. I'm just saying the evidence is there. That's all. I rest my case.
I really enjoyed the interaction where the dad is helping Xena out, and she says the arrow didn't pass through, and he goes, good. And then she's like, no, that's bad.
That's bad.
I need you to jam it through me. And then the last line that I really amused me was when the evil dad gets killed, and he looks at his son and he says, if you had done this, I would have died proud. It's like
wild.
Just to the end, a bitter asshole.
You got to respect it. You got to respect the hustle. He knew what he was. He said, look, I'm a villain on Xena, and I'm going to die like a villain on Xena, bitch. I am going to fucking still keep on my bullshit. It would be so dishonorable of the show if he was like, son, I forgive you. No, I love that. I love he's just like, you know what? You disappoint me even more.
Yeah.
It's like, well, now that guy's dead, let's go make peace. It's pretty fun. All right, so let's go ahead and put a pause on that Xena discussion and move on to Quantum Leap. Take a frantic leap as Gabrielle did from horse to horse, not a jump. It was the best I could do, she says. Anyway, Quantum Leap. Season 1, Episode 3, Star-Crossed, June 15th, 1972. It was written by Donald P. Belisario and Deborah Pratt, directed by Mark Sobel, aired March 31st, 1989. Al, do I say the second episode summary? Did I do this?
Usually I introduce it, but you're doing a great job hosting, and I want to continue to build on that by summarizing for you.
Great, please do it.
In this episode, at a small Ohio college, quantum leaper Sam Beckett is a lit professor who must discourage the amorous advances of a student and finds the woman who left him at the altar, played by Terry Hatcher, and the giant egg for GameCube. Sam hopes that resolving her conflicts with her father will prevent her from deserting him. And as we move on, we realize that preventing the woman from sleeping with him, the professor, is what actually ends the loop. And that all happens in the Watergate Hotel at the very end. It's wild.
Amazing.
Truly
amazing.
God.
Truly
I screamed, Ryan.
amazing.
Absolute bananas.
Yeah.
Let's get
But
into
they
it.
set it up. They set it up in the episode.
They did. As the episode was going on, I was like, all this politics stuff is gonna matter, but like, what happened in this election? I can't remember. And
when Al is like, you know what year it is, right? 1975, whatever. He's like, yeah, but you know what hotel you're in? It's called the Watergate Hotel. And
Sam's like, I don't remember.
So,
I don't know.
But John, you didn't know what was happening during that time? Well, Republicans would have loved you. As Al said. Oh man, what an episode of TV. Terry
love a
Hatcher
show
was
that
in
can
this.
laugh.
She's young. She's so young, Terry Hatcher. I'm used to her being my
That's
least
weird.
favorite Desperate Housewife, Susan.
What?
Oh, Susan sucks. Everyone.
Okay, I've
here's
never watched
here's
it.
Susan from Desperate Housewives. She's the character that the show likes, but the fans don't care about. Like Susan's the one that's like they treat her as very important, but she's such a fuck up in a way that isn't as entertaining as the other wives who are fuck ups in their own ways. It's just like, oh god, and she has the will they won't they romance with the hunky guy who's a former. It's just
Sure.
don't get me started. But I like Terry Hatcher, even in spite of her being the worst Desperate Housewife.
Wow. She was the best in the outrageous Okona, that one episode of TNG from a couple of years.
I thought you were going to
this,
say Lois and Clark.
I was about to say that next. She's also fantastic as Lois Lane and Lois and Clark in the one episode.
I hear in Seinfeld that her breasts are in fact fantastic. That's a whole entire.
Oh, that's
thing.
her.
Yeah, that's her.
Yeah,
that's her.
Yeah. So we have an appreciation for Terry Hatcher. We love Al and Sam. Magellan, what was the vibe? How did you feel about this episode of Quantum Leap?
Look, I got a lot of respect for Quantum Leap. I find it extremely entertaining and very daring. And this episode was a real high wire act of like,
yes,
this is hilarious. Wow, this is so tender. Oh my God, this is really icky and I hate it. And I felt like I was teetering between those emotions on a minute to minute basis. But overall, you know, this is some entertaining television here. They had me right from the beginning with Sam leaping into the life of this literature professor, and he's having to kind of bullshit his way through a lecture on Wuthering Heights, and he's like, and what book are we reading, everybody? I love that. I love watching Scott Bakula just kind of do different things every week. It's very fun.
Scotty Bax. That was so Indiana Jones to me. I know you haven't seen. Have you seen the Indiana Jones movies, Magellan?
No, I have not.
The first three are entertaining. I rented them all from Blockbuster and watched them in a weekend when I was in like middle school. There's a scene where he's at the school and like there's a girl who draws hearts on her eyes, and it's exactly this thing of like the hot professor, except usually the joke is like he's not gonna like reciprocate those advances. But in this, at least in theory, there isn't a world where this professor does sleep with one of his students and then marry her.
Well, that's what he has to put right. The whole entire premise is you have to put wrong things right, and this was a wrong thing. We all agree that relationship was bad, and so you have to have that. And the humor comes in the fact that Sam has no clue what's happening, and then he's thrown into this, and he's like, "A pretty lady's kissing me. Oh no, help me!
What do I do?
Know what I'm doing?" And then Al tells him what the plot is, and he's just like, "Okay, well, still, no, help me! I don't know what to do. Please, no. I'm an ugly professor guy who seems like a sleazeball, but I'm also Scott Bakula. I'm also very attractive. What do I do? I'm trapped."
That was so funny to me that whenever he looks in the mirror and sees the guy, I was like, that's the guy that all these girls are like, oh boy, like what? He's like a
he's romantic,
average looking.
but it's
I
because
get, yeah,
he uses his power and his intellect, and he screws over people. So Sam has to put that right because it's bad.
Right. Yeah, I thought the episode was very funny in parts where it needed to be. I'm very charmed by Bakula's character. I'm trying to remember his name.
Sam Beckett.
Bakula plays Sam Beckett. Thank you. Sorry. They're just very, American guy names there's just so many.
Yeah, Al Calavici. Yeah.
There it is. Sam's ignorance about the world and like what's going on, and Al's different efforts to like explain things to him without giving him the answer are so charming at the core of this. Like both of these shows have incredible like duos at their center. In these particular episodes, I think Quantum Leap's ensemble works a little better. We'll talk about that when we do our little ratings at the end. But like Al and Sam get to talk to each other plenty. Like half the dialogue is between them being like, what do I do here? This seems inappropriate. How do I make this less inappropriate? Or why am I supposed to be here? And really, what I found so fascinating is that even when Sam understands that, he's the one who gets in his own way, because he's like, I think the more important thing here is that I get Donna to fall in love with me and not leave me at the altar. And it's like, dog, that's not the plot. And he's like, sure, but what if it is the plot?
Yeah.
It's just like the wistful ignorance of it. It's very adorable, I think is the word.
Yeah, they start out the gate with the first episode being what you have to, or what you often see with a time traveler story, which is why you cannot or why you should not alter the timeline to benefit oneself. That's the premise of this episode. It's not actually interested in what is the central conceit, like what is the leap's conceit of, he must stop this lit professor from marrying a student and ruining all of their lives. That is a part of the story. It is the springboard for what is a character study of Sam Beckett, a man who does not even know himself properly. And we only got to see the real him for like 2 seconds before he leapt and became a man who is figuring out who he is. And I love that, because it's like we would hope that he's like a noble character, a good character, but in this one he succumbs to what everyone would if you were in his situation of, I can try and change my past and make it better for me, and you have all of these complicating factors stopping him or trying to persuade him otherwise. I think I've also got a clip that is really good for that, of how he needs to start using his head, not his heart. He needs to start thinking with his noggin. So, Magellan, if you have that one available.
Yeah, let me find that.
He'll fish it up.
Let's start. Here it is.
How could she know it was you when she doesn't meet you for 12 years?
We're star-crossed souls.
That uncrossed.
Well, I've been working on that, and I think I can fix it, but I have to locate her father. And I was... Al.
No, I can't help you, Sam. If I even try, they're going to pull the plug, and they're not kidding. Weitzman is at the Foundation right now arguing for the authority to do it. You've broken your rules, you've broken their rules, you've broken our rules. You got to stop thinking with your heart and start thinking with your noggin.
Is that what you do?
Is it? We learn more about Al slowly and how he would not have done the same thing necessarily. I love it.
It's fun because the dynamic that everyone loves about this series is Al being this kooky guy who can only be an observer. He cannot physically interact. He cannot give all of the information. He cannot give Sam the handhold, but he desperately would want to. And he's also a guy that is always smoking cigars and ogling the ladies, and he's got these extravagant outfits, and so you think he's always the wacky character. But what I really loved about this episode is Sam is kind of really wacky in this one, where you heard it in that clip of Al having to be the authority here. It was like, no, we don't break the rules like that. It's like, no, but don't you get it? Don't you get it, Al? The burger is the key to this. It's like, like earlier they have like a back and forth of like suicide. No, that's a bad thing. We can't commit suicide. That's an awful thing. Well, what do we do? A cup of tea? Just Sam, he's just coming across as like the silly one because he's having to pull so much stuff and improvise, and he's trying to justify messing around with time to benefit himself.
Yeah, it's a fun reversal of where he's at in the pilot episode, where like he has so little information about himself when he's first there that he's really kind of swept up in the life of the Leap and is carried along by it, becomes invested in it, and is trying to protect it, protect that guy's life, that guy's family, all that stuff. And he's driven by like a kind of fundamental, almost beyond, like you were saying, Ryan, he's a man in search of himself. And it's almost like beyond the particulars of who he is or what his memories are. In that pilot episode, there's kind of this core goodness that he's leaning on or believing in. And now having enough information about this life to understand how to use it to his benefit, he's kind of like trying to take refuge in one of the few things that he understands. He doesn't even remember all of the circumstances of his and Donna's relationship or how it ended or whatever. It's just he knows that it's a thing, and he knows that he could get to it or save it or something. And so I think that's a really smart thing to do after the pilot, is make our protagonist the bad guy in the story in a way. Like he's the one who's causing a lot of the problems. And it's sort of like, can we trust him? And there's this, I don't know, it's kind of a tricky thing to watch, but there's this escalating concern that I felt as Donna starts to fall in love with him, where it's like, well, where is like Sam's honor and where is his line here? Because he does still keep himself, within a certain set of like acceptable behaviors, or like he does still do what he thinks is right on some level. But there is that question of like, she's kind of falling in love with him. Is he gonna take advantage of this situation? Is he gonna like lean too far into the kind of behaviors that the professor's doing? This is really uncomfortable to watch, and I don't know that I can fully trust Sam Beckett yet, because I don't know him and I haven't seen very much of him. So I don't know. They still kind of end up in the position where Sam Beckett's just like a good guy who does the right thing. But I'm kind of glad that they made me question that, even if it was a pretty uncomfortable thing to witness.
Questions, comments, concerns. Sorry. No, I was trying to lay you up there. Is that what the kids say? Is that a basketball term, I think?
I have things to add to that, but I just want to make sure if Alan, you have anything on that, or how this episode presented and handled itself as what would most likely be relatively a standard of the series, because this isn't a 90-minute pilot. This is a traditional 45-minute episode where Sam leaps into a situation that is beyond his comprehension, quickly has to garner what's going on and have a personal agenda to it as well.
Yeah, I think, agreeing with John, though, like, most interesting thing is that we don't have a singular villain on Quantum Leap. At least I don't think we will. But like, the villain is often circumstance, and it can be Sam's desires or Al's desires. And I think that's like best exemplified in my favorite scene of the episode, where Al is trying to give hints about where Donna's father is, but the powers that be are listening to him, so he has to explain them via hieroglyphics. Just a fascinating scene that does like a little bit of ham-fisted like explanation, like, Sam, you know hieroglyphics, and he's like, I do. But once we get there, like the pure comedy and like fun of that whole moment where he's like explaining like, this is where he is, good job, and then he gets pulled away, was like really cool. Like, Quantum Leap, for how silly it is and for how heartfelt it can be, has a like storyline and a backstory to these characters that I'm finding very compelling.
It uses the science fiction in that scene as well, of course, with Sam being Sam talking to a hologram, and then Al gets dragged away, and it looks like a horror movie where he looks like he's being dragged by ghosts and stuff, and you get Sam underneath, you get Al underneath a black light, and how it fucks with his hologram and things of that nature. What I think is very key is to this episode, what makes it work, other than, let's be honest, it's a charm of these two leads. You're in safe hands with Dean Stockwell, who had just come off of an Oscar nomination before doing this series, and you've got Scott Bakula, who he doesn't even need words to express everything in this series. He just has that comfortable, lovable look on his face where you can trust this guy and he has good intentions. But what I really was drawn to is how tragic it is for Sam, because he is talking to this woman that he knows will be a love of his life. Whether she is the love, he doesn't even know, but he's in the body of someone else. And he talks about how there are two souls trapped here. And this is going to be Sam's existence. Like, his life is Al coming to him saying, here's a problem for you to solve, but what about Sam's autonomy? What about Sam's wants, desires? We can say those are villainous things or selfish things, but aren't they also just human things that he is being robbed of via this time travel gimmick? Like, what can Sam do for his own happiness? This is him taking a chance at that in the moment and in the long term. And the episode questions it. It's like, is this a good thing? And Sam has his moment where Al tells him, you play it like this, she could end up with the man that she was engaged to before. Are you willing to do that? And you see Scott Bakula's face just soften and realize, yeah, I'm willing to do that because she deserves happiness. And so do I.
That was very sweet. Even, I thought that was very sweet.
And that's like kind of like the heart and soul of this episode in particular is we are getting the classic time travel thing of like a person is meddling with time for selfish reasons per se, but the extra added layer of he's inhabiting the body of someone else and he does not have his own body adds something a little bit more personal to it. It isn't just Biff Tannen goes back in time and gives himself the almanac and makes himself rich. This is him basically imprisoned for what could be the rest of time, and we don't know. He doesn't know. Nobody knows. And I wanted to ask you to this. This episode very much has it as two warring factions of belief. The belief of time is something that can be measured with science, with Ziggy the computer, and time and Sam's place in it is something that is dictated by someone else or something else, whether it is fate or cosmic entities or God. And they have little moments of dropping that in there, of Sam for being a scientist with 6 doctorates and who's invented this time travel machine. He's so willing throughout this episode to keep falling back on this could just be God. This could just be fate. I could just be having connections to something more than just what Ziggy the computer can analyze. What did you think about that being a layer added to this time travel series?
I think I definitely find this show's relationship to morality pretty intriguing, because at its core there is this idea that, like, in order for him to move through time, there are concrete things he needs to do in order to better the person's life, or, whatever it is, or better the world, or I don't fully have enough data to parse what that is, but what we've seen so far is it's like save someone's life, help somebody avoid, a really awful relationship situation and find something that's better for them, that kind of thing. And so that would seem to imply, and the way that it's Sam and Al are having to figure out what is the solution to this kind of moral puzzle every time would seem to indicate that there is some kind of higher moral power operating, dictating, well, what is right and what is wrong here. And that feels that tension is a little interesting to me, because like you were saying, Ryan, there's so much importance that Sam's placing here on his own autonomy, and he's able to make these choices that presumably shift his own life for his own future. He's definitely changed Donna's life, but he doesn't get to move or leap until he does the right thing. And is there choice and autonomy in the process of doing the right thing, if there is a right thing that you have to figure out? Like, is that really a choice that you're making for the right reasons, or you're just kind of solving a puzzle that's put in front of you because you have to in order to potentially get back to where you want to be. And I think that's sort of a larger commentary on like, why do people do good things, and the trials we face on earth and heaven and that kind of thing. So I found that an intriguing layer of this for sure.
Right. Like, is the episode really about Sam sacrificing the thing that he thinks he can do, which is reconcile with Donna, in favor of helping somebody else and repairing a damaged or inappropriate relationship from going badly? Because he knows that these two teenagers, that Oscar and Jamie Lee, are like gonna work out together, and they're the right people for each other. She shouldn't get with her teacher. So he has to, instead of fixing Donna's relationship, do that. But also, yeah, like, who is he to decide that this is what's going to fix Donna's relationship with him? Because even Al says at the end, like, okay, you did it. She's probably just going to marry the first guy. Like, you're not only assuming that by reconciling her relationship with her dad that she will find love, but you're also assuming that she will wait for her second chance. But what if she doesn't? And he's like, I just believe that she will.
Yeah.
Because I love her a lot. And it's like, interesting, man. Very interesting.
Again, like you were saying, Magellan, it's like this act of balancing all of these things. And that is very much the case with Sam Beckett in this episode of what Alan was just going through, of who makes Sam the decider here. But also Sam has no decisions because he's not allowed to leave. Right. He's not allowed to get a chance to go home or wherever until he completes the mission that Ziggy has analyzed. But how does Ziggy determine that? And then, like, is there some other plane above that, morality-wise or cosmic or spiritual, that is saying, Sam, you got to do this? But here's the thing, too, of he played God. He played God in the first episode. He said, fuck it, I'm going to jump into this machine that alters the reality of everything we know. And you often see in science fiction stories that when one plays God, it's a classic, you fuck around, you find out. And now we're seeing Sam every episode find out. And in this one, as I was saying earlier, he's still kind of a bit of a selfish guy. Like, he's singing and dancing about how he got these two back together, but he's also saying it'll still probably work out well for me because I've got connections upstairs. Like, he believes himself, like, if there is a God, he's on my side, which is so fascinating. And I included that clip as well for you, Magellan, but because he's like, what an interesting character to have, where Scott Bakula's performance makes the character still so soft and warm and lovable, and yet there are things Sam does and says in this episode that if in any other performer's hands, you could say that Sam Beckett is a like gritty, selfish, kind of narcissistic, mad scientist like character. But you got Scott Bakula there, and you don't feel that way entirely.
I have that quote, and then I have a response to what you just said.
I don't understand you, pal. Well, you're wearing that goofball grin, and Donna is probably going to end up marrying that sucker that she hooked before you.
Maybe not. Maybe she'll jilt him and marry me.
Want to bet?
Yeah. I got connections.
Yeah, there it is.
Like, the whole, I mean, a big kind of complaint or reservation I have about this episode, but, what you're saying, Ryan, makes me feel like maybe it's part of the point, is the whole scheme here on Sam's part is wild. Like, I'm going to fix this woman's attachment trauma by forcing her to go on a road trip, or like tricking her essentially to go on a road trip with me to meet her dad. In what world is that gonna like heal somebody's emotional wounds and actually do what you think it's gonna do? In what world is that okay? And you can tell her, and she's like, wow, you really are romantic. This is amazing. Oh my God, I'm so happy to see my dad. So it, on some level, it kind of felt like a narrative convenience because we need to wrap this up in an episode. On some level, I think it's working, like you're saying, Ryan, in that zone of, wow, Sam Beckett is a narcissist and making choices, tinkering with time and tinkering with people's lives in a way that isn't okay. It felt a lot like that movie About Time. Has anybody seen that movie?
I've heard you talk about it.
I've heard you talk about it before. Yeah. I've also heard you talk about it.
Basically, About Time, it's like a rom-com kind of thing where the male protagonist is from a family of time traveling guys, and he just kind of like goes back and tinkers with moments in his life so that he can end up in love with Rachel McAdams. And the movie's like, this is fine, this is cool. You're with Rachel McAdams now, and we're in love, and love's cool. But this isn't okay. What Sam's doing here isn't okay. And also, I think what's interesting here with regard to the morality thing, you could make the argument textually that the good that he does for Donna is better than the good that he does for Jamie Lee. Because all that he does for Jamie Lee is he locks her into a relationship with like this meathead guy who doesn't share any of her interests. And it's like, But
in his defense, he also helped that meathead guy become something more to what she was wanting, because she's also not she's not the smartest person. She's emulating this professor, but really she's just a good old Southern gal, and he's a good old Southern boy, and it's as simple as that. And they find like once all of that pretense is gone, it's just them two in the car. They connect on something maybe primal, maybe trivial to us, but it is something to them, and it's better than what the alternative of her life was going to be. Obviously, we can all agree on that, because it seemed like it was a bad time all around for everyone there. But here's something too: like, we don't know if what Sam did has good consequences or not for Donna, because that's not in the program. That's not in Ziggy's programming. It says, oh, you've improved it by this many chances, but we don't know. And then another thing too, and this is again something that the episode plays with, which is her dad is about to leave to go to Vietnam, probably dies there. They never 100% say, but we know that she has father issues that don't get resolved. And it's another thing of, if you were a time traveler and you wanted to influence your life, but also the life of somebody else there would be a compulsion, probably, to let them have a moment of resolution or connection before it could never, ever happen, right? Like, that's something that people would do, which, again, makes Sam relatable. It's not like, he's not a Mary Sue, he's not a goody two-shoes holy, but, and this is something interesting. The end of the episode always is, Sam is thrown into another chaotic situation. Oh boy, is the catchline of the catchphrase of the series. But what I think is really prevalent in this one is you're seeing Sam have to wrestle with who he is, whilst also being a guy who's in a crisis mode situation. Like, can you be your real self if every single moment of your life is you in crisis mode? Because that's what Sam is. Like, he gets thrown into the next crisis, and has to play catch up. But also, how do you be yourself? Which this episode plays with, which, like, most of the scenes is Scott Bakula, like, stammering and being nervous and, like, trying not to come across as a creep or crazy. And then also being like, but Al, I see someone I know. I feel like I should do something about that.
Yeah, that has to matter to me, right? That just simply has to.
And another question I'm going to ask, this episode, you have opening credits. I can't remember if the pilot did. But the opening credits, and we haven't mentioned, but Terry Hatch's character, Donna, she is somebody who worked on the project, apparently, or like he had a working relationship with her. He reveals quantum leap theories and stuff to her beforehand. But
wild.
What did you think? The opening credits visually show this, but they talk about it in lines of dialogue. Did you pick up on what he said the method of time travel is, of like the duration of which one can go?
I don't think I caught that.
She says, oh, you can only do it within your own lifetime? That's a little strange. And he's like, well, yeah, here's my theory about that. And they kind of talk about that. And in the opening credits, you only see certain years of things. It's not like you're seeing like ancient Roman times. And it's like them just kind of briefly being like, well, if you traveled within your own lifetime, wouldn't that be pretty boring? Like, no, a lot happens in one's lifetime. And it's like, well, that's kind of the show, I guess.
This is the thing that
if you're a boomer, Watergate, baby.
Well, not if you're us either. Not if you're,
not if you're us, absolutely.
No, I know,
exactly.
I know. We're just being silly.
Well, just like, That's another awesome bit of world building that you bring up, Brian. And this is a thing that I keep noticing with Quantum Leap, the original, is like the world building is subtle and understated and matters, but isn't like annoying about it the way every show is about world building now, which just really, really, really blows my mind that they made a new Quantum Leap and that exists and is now getting its second season. And I just,
it's fine. It's a fine show. It's not anything special to me. I like, just to get that out of the way. They're doing okay. The lead guy is very charming as well. They keep finding charming men for Quantum Leap, so I'm happy about that. But it's okay. Like, they do mystery box bullshit for no reason, and they make time travel whenever instead of lifetime, which I think reduces some of the heft of what made this series special. Like, what is Quantum Leap? Oh, the time travel premise is you leap into the body of someone else, you must put right what once went wrong, but it's also in a limited time frame, not only just because that works for budget concerns, of course, but to maybe illustrate the point that so many things have happened within you at home's lifetime.
In your lifetime.
Yeah. Like, if you traveled back to a certain time in our area, it's like, maybe nothing's happened. No, tons of stuff has. Of course it has. The world goes on, people's lives change, movements grow and evolve. Like that, there's a bit of humor about that in this episode of Sam being like, ugh, I hate these tropes of like hippy dippy children and free love, and he's like, ugh, God, I hate this, as he refers to his like Tom Cruise era America that he loves.
Yeah.
Well, it also makes sure that every episode we can have Sam in a different place, in a different person's life, but it's always relevant to him, or there's always a way to develop or explore who he is through the context of that person because it's in his life. And I love the conversation that he has with Donna, where he's like, if you could go back in time to some point in your life, where would you go? What would you do? Because in a way, Quantum Leap is kind of about that too, because I would imagine it's going to continue to throw moments at us, like when he's at a time where he's able to call his dad on the phone, or at a time where he's able to try to reconnect with this lost love, or at a time where he's able to be involved in like a particular world event that was consequential to him or whatever. So he's able to live out different versions of that hypothetical question. And so it's not just like a time travel show about going to wherever and doing old time stuff, but it's a show about if you could change something in your life or in the world in the span of time where you've lived in it, what would it be?
Right.
And I think that's like a more compelling, specific question for a time travel show than just like, boys, and this kind of fun.
And
like the episode of The Simpsons, Treehouse of Horror 5, where Homer keeps going back to the dinosaur ages, and he kills the fly, and then everybody becomes fly people. I did it!
That's a good one.
I fucking did it! Yes!
Thank you.
Oh my god. I didn't have it until just now, y'all. I'm so serious. I just came up with it.
With Quantum Leap, it's a series that rides so many different tones, so many different like genres, even in terms of like, with this time period, maybe you could lean into like this type of story, but its foundation means that you can have basically anything you want. Hence, you said you're going to approach it, if it did win, in like a shuffle form of like, this episode is on the spin of a wheel or whatever the case may be. And it definitely is a series that could work in that way. There are some things that you would lack. Like, I really do love in the first season, you along with Sam learn who Sam Beckett is. And then the second season is you along with Sam learn who Al is as well. But that's just like underlying things rather than like, you will get big episodes about those that like are very definitive and fan favorites. But yeah, and something I just wanted to comment on, the two writers you mentioned, Donald Belisario and Deborah Pratt, were a married couple at the time. Donald is basically like the fucking grandfather of television. He's done every show. He's behind Magnum PI and NCIS and JAG and like so many others. Big iconic shows. And he always has said that Quantum Leap's his favorite because it's the most honest and artistic. And Deborah Pratt is kind of the voice of Quantum Leap. She writes the most episodes. She tackles a lot of the serious subject matters as she's an African-American woman. And thankfully, in the new Quantum Leap series, she's involved as a producer and she's directing episodes. She only got into directing recently, and they got her directing episodes, and it's really great to see, like, although that series has some bizarre relationships with the original Quantum Leap, it's nice that there is some that is very direct. So I just wanted to just raise that now, I'm trying to think. That's basically all I have to say on this episode myself. On anything else you guys have to say, or any questions you have while I'm here as someone who's a Quantum Leap, person watcher?
It sounds like you like it, obviously. It sounds like I'm surprised to hear that the remake is decent, or reboot, whatever.
It's fine.
And it sounds like it might even be worth considering watching in the release order, because there is some development with Sam and Al that might be fun to watch progress in that order if we choose to do it that way. Those would be my main things. I do have some quick stray notes on my end, and then Magellan, we can obviously get to yours. We mentioned this earlier, but Sam knowing this era, it's kind of like going back into your, like, a picture book with your family and looking back and being like, oh, what an awkward era. Like when he gets here and says, great, 4 of my least favorite cliches: headbands, bell bottoms, flower power, and English lit. Like, the show is full of lines that would be an eye roller from anybody else if it wasn't Scott Bakula just being, like, so charming. It's very hard to explain what kind of swag he has, but it's very charming to me. Also charming when Donna and Sam are in the front of the car, Jamie Lee and Oscar in the back. We're all trying to flirt, and American Pie by Don McLean is playing. I can feel myself being manipulated by the soundtrack, and it is working. I'm like, damn, I kind of miss the 70s, even though I wasn't alive. And then last but not least, of course, when he saves the day and Donna's reunited with her dad, I felt so weird about the way that he says goodbye as he gives her a kiss on the nose. I was like, huh? What an odd, way better than him choosing to kiss her on the lips, obviously. But, like, he just does like a little peck. It made me giggle a little bit. What about you, Stray Nuts Puppy?
I did have one question for you, Ryan, because the thing that I was like a little, I was having a hard time reading if I should believe what Al is saying about, like, the office politics of the future, and, like, how much of that stuff, you don't have to tell me if he's lying or not, but does the future cast and character stuff become more of a thing? Or is it always just kind of like Al's complaining about, oh, what's his face on the board is at it again?
Special episodes will involve future people. You will see a couple of other people out there. You do get an episode or two of Al having to suit up and go to Congress and stuff to deal with it, but it's mainly about the leaps and Al and Sam's dynamics. You'll hear a lot about Tina, you'll hear a lot about Gushy and Ziggy and that, but we're really living in the moment. And yeah, this is and it's also like a bit of fun world building to have Al, who, again, we didn't get to talk too much about, but like Dean Stockwell's off-kilter performance as he is delivering lines that could easily feel like just world building, but he has the outfit, his facial expressions, the whole entire just demeanor makes it feel fun to hear this stuff, but also inconsequential. Like, to Al, it's just like, oh, another fucking problem. Time travel, am I right, Sam? Crazy stuff. Either way, these bureaucrats are trying to stop me. I can't break the rules, of course, but also, you have 6 doctorates, and here's 3 of them that help you understand who you are. But either way, don't notice that. Let's focus on that other stuff. And fucking Dean Stockwell, he was such a great actor, child actor from the 50s, great friends with, like, David Lynch and a myriad of others, and Dennis Hopper, and all of those. And God, I miss him. And when the new Quantum Leap came out, it was like, there's no Scott Bakula and there's no Dean Stockwell, and that was kind of like one of the major sticking points of, like, well, what's the point? Why bother? Because it's really about these 2 actors, and Dean Stockwell's so great. One little thing in my notes that I loved, which is when Al first appears, there's like a little musical track that plays. I really love that, and I love the blocking of this, because you think he's sitting down, because he's on the ground and he's like looking at this lady's ass, but he also has like this depressed look on his face, and he's just kind of bemused by the whole thing. And then you get the wide shot, and he's on one knee, Like he's crouched on one knee, and I'm like, what a weird thing for him to do. But at the same time, he's a hologram. Like in his world, in the real world, he's just standing in a chamber, probably doing something. But yeah, there's many interesting questions about. Are they going to ask more about like how leaping works, which is a whole can of worms.
I wanted to learn that. I would want to learn that in
I'll
watching.
learn that in the show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I have a couple stray notes here from the episode. I was really, really enamored with the character of Oscar and like a lot of his lines. I love when Sam goes, "Isn't Jamie Lee in your thoughts night and day?" And he says, "Yeah, except for wrestling practice." That was pretty fun. And then when we get hints of like the bad poetry that he's trying to woo her with, and Sam's like, "You gotta tell her romantic stuff, like, you know, about her lips." And he says, "Yeah, how wet and how juicy they are." Yeah, right, like that. It's pretty funny.
Horny isn't romantic.
Horny isn't romantic. I wrote that one down.
It is to me.
Ugh.
Yeah, but that's all I got.
Oscar will figure it out someday. He's not going to be. Well, he might be like Jeff on Yellow Jackets, where he becomes an entirely different person as an adult. You know, the jock marrying the cheerleader, but I guess the athlete in that case.
Oh, another detail that was great. Different arrangements of the score was used. Different arrangements of the main theme was throughout the episode. Different musical stylings, different ways that it was implemented subtly and more overtly, and I found that actually really intriguing. Like, I can't remember fully if that's something that they do many times over, but it's a great theme song. Love that music. It's a bop, and so when they used it in a variety of ways in this one, I was just like, yes, give me more of that.
It sounds like mall music from the 80s. Complimentary, to be clear.
But then the beat drops and it gets real hard, like ba 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 ba.
Yeah, I really like it. It's like if they could have gone for something very different to show the tone of Quantum Leap, but they're like, no, it's fun, it's light, you're gonna have a good time, you're gonna feel something. It's time for Quantum Leap. It's very 80s in that way. I enjoy it. Oh no, we have to decide now, Magellan, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
Climb into the Quantum Leap time chamber. Ryan, it
The
sounds
accelerator,
like you made your choice.
Yeah, well, did I make my
Accelerator
choice?
key.
Oh, guys, it's clearly Xena. What a great episode this was. It did not.
Yeah.
It did not make me.
Easy.
Look. When I watch TV like Xena, I want to not react at all. And hence, when I watch Quantum Leap, it's a thumbs down because I was smiling and clapping and guffawing. That's a bad thing, but not, no. In all seriousness, it has to be Quantum Leap, of course. I think that this episode gives a good hint, like a good helping of what the series has going for it in general. It has the great like amount of tonal stuff that you get within things. Like, you'll have more episodes that are like overtly silly or overtly dramatic, hard hitting even most often actually. But I love Quantum Leap, of course, and I think that this is a pretty good stepping off point. The pilot episode's not one of my favorites. This isn't one of my favorites. Actually, I actually really like the next episode, but I thought I'd come on for this in case you didn't get there. But yeah, I really enjoyed revisiting this. And Xena, I think with going into this discussion, I really wasn't too sure of what we would talk about because I found it just very plodding. But I really think that you two find certain aspects to the series, to the episode, at least that episode, that garner some conversation that would be thrilling to hear if you did cover it more so. You know, if it was up to me, like going in, if it was just me, I'd be like, nah, flush it down the toilet. This one was boring. But talking to you both,
yeah,
it really did bring out some greater qualities. So both of them have stuff going on. And again, I find it interesting how similar these two shows are, whilst also being dramatically different to one another, where both shows are about two leads who go from place to place to place, dealing with whatever the writers come up with that week. But you have that ongoing central dynamic that is catnip. You can never get enough of it. It's always the sell of the show, no matter if the episode is good or bad. So yeah, both of them interesting, but it has to be Quantum Leap.
Okay. Well, thank you for your contribution. You've done a great job, as always. And it's time for you to plug your stuff, right? Give us your plugs and then your chats.
I will plug it. Now, I host two podcasts. I host a film podcast with my good dear friend Bartek called Spit and Polish Presents. We talk about movies. Obviously, we have a recommendation cycle, and that means that we have a whole wide array of choices, new, old, foreign, local. It's a wonderful time. We have an ongoing bit where we love talking about a Paul Giamatti film when we hit a certain number, and soon we are going to be hitting 400 episodes for our podcast, so we have to decide which Paul Giamatti film, and I'm thinking it's going to be The Nanny Diaries, but hold on to your butts. We'll have to find out if that is the case. But I also host a podcast with my wife, Rachel, who maybe one day will appear on a main feed episode of Chats. We'll never know. But we talk about science fiction television primarily, or at least at the moment. We have gone through Star Trek Discovery. We have gone through Babylon 5, basically. By the time this episode comes out, we'll at least be an episode or two off of finishing that podcast entirely. We did a discussion of every episode of the cult series Space Above and Beyond, which has garnered a lot of success for us. We have had interviews with cast members from that series, and potentially soon one of the head writers of that series, Glenn Morgan, who is a beloved writer
for X-Files.
Yeah, because Space Above and Beyond was created by Jim Wong and Glenn Morgan, who were one of the primary writing teams on the X-Files. And they would go on to be on the X-Files after Space Above and Beyond got cancelled, which, fun little story, it got cancelled, it got brutally murdered by Fox, and then they came back to the X-Files and wrote one of the highest rated episodes of the entire run of the show, and the most infamous episode, one that got banned in countries, and one that Tucker Smallwood, the actor who was in Space Above and Beyond and a myriad of other things, when he read the script, he phoned them up and said, "Are you guys okay?" Because this script is messed up. And they're like, "No, we're not okay. But enjoy the episode." And that's so
fun.
we talked about that. And recently we've been talking about The Expanse, first time watchers of The Expanse. So we have been going through the journey of seeing Thomas Jane try and suffer through wearing shoes while acting, because he's an actor.
And a bad hat.
And the hat too. He's an actor who's known for, in real life, he always tries to be barefoot because he hates shoes. So there are many scenes where we comment on him being like, "Ugh, I'm wearing shoes," which is very fun. But we're just having a grand old time. So you can find both of my podcasts by just looking them up, or I'm sure there's a link in the description of the episode. And chat some for recommendations of things. I recently played Metal Gear Solid 4 for the first time.
Yeah, King.
I'm a big fan of the Metal Gear Solid franchise. It's one of my favorite video game series, but I've never had the chance to play the fourth game or really anything beyond it, because I don't want to skip the fourth game and then go to others, even though other ones take place in different chronology. But I never played it because I never had a PlayStation 3, and pirating it was just always kind of a pain in the ass. And so I recently hung out with my co-host and friend Bartek to play the game. We spent like a few days just plugging away at it, and I had a great time. I actually thoroughly enjoyed the story of that game. It got extremely dumb near the end, but I still forgive it, and I very much enjoyed the game, much to my surprise, because it is, I think, maybe the odd duck out for the series. I don't think a lot of people love it, but I very much had a great time with it, and I'm looking forward to being able to play more of the Metal Gear Solid franchise now. But I definitely recommend Metal Gear Solid 4. It's got so many, like with every Kojima game, little details that don't need to be there, but they add to the experience so much. And for a game from so long ago now, it still feels surprisingly fresh with some of the ideas and concepts gameplay-wise and game mechanics-wise that we don't really get a lot of in modern gaming. So definitely revisit or check out for the first time Metal Gear Solid 4. It makes no sense if you haven't played any of the other games. Clearly.
It's not a good,
because it's a conclusion. It's a conclusion point. But if you're also a big fan of Metal Gear Solid 1, Metal Gear Solid 4 rewards you for that love. And so definitely give those a look. Just Metal Gear Solid in general. But the fourth one was what I played recently, and I had a great time.
Beautiful. Incredible.
Nice.
I'll be catching up to you soon enough with the novel Not New, folks. In several months, we'll be playing 3 and then 4. Groovy. Well, Magellan, I think that means that we have to take it to a break. And when we come back, it'll just be the two of us, and we'll be making our final decision on who wins, Xena versus Quantum Leap. Welcome back to Couch Madness. I just found a burst of energy hidden deep inside my craw, and it's here to help me make a decision with co-host of the podcast and the love of my life. It's Magellan.
Damn, I shouldn't have gotten that second bite of cereal.
Yeah.
I
Remember, I think it was last week when I was like,
Yeah.
oh, tell me what you think about this. And you're like, yeah, it's fine. And I was like, no, same. Oh, no. I'm eating a bite. I was also eating cereal that time, I think. So
I just finished my cereal, so there will be no more eating sounds. But there might be some milk slurping if anybody wants that.
I wish the ha was like TJ Maxx. I would rather talk about anything than this decision right now, Michelle. I am being AVOIDANT avoidant.
Well, you can avoid it for about 60 seconds while I tell you my gut check. How about that?
Sounds good.
Oh, this is a hard one. And I had to come down to a decision metric that kind of lies outside of the episodes themselves to a certain extent.
Fair.
I think after I watched the Xena episode, I was like, oh, phew, great. Xena's
Easy.
still fun. I had a lot of fun. Clinched it. I was right. Xena's the show. We're good. And then I was watching the Quantum Leap episode, and there's just so much going on in that show.
I know.
It's making a lot of big choices and doing some wild stuff. It starts with Scott Bakula being like, yeah, I'm a professor. And it ends with people being like, uh-oh, it's the Watergate break-in. And like, how could we not, you know? So this is a really, really tough choice for me because I don't think it was the strongest showing from Xena, necessarily. I think it was like kind of an odd verging on problematic showing from Quantum Leap, but highly discussable. And, you know, as we found in the conversation with Ryan, there's a lot of thematic meat to chew on there. So I had to really, you know, bring it to the most basic question of which one of these do I want to watch the next episode of, like, as soon as possible? And which one of these would I want to watch a lot of episodes in succession back to back for the duration of a season? And I think for me, the answer to that is Xena. Like right now,
Ooh.
I want to kind of settle into the hot tub comfort of, like, you know, Ryan was describing it as Sunday afternoon television. And that's kind of what I want. I kind of want a chat show that is taking that genre and trying to inject nuance into it, or trying to find things that are interesting while still knowing what it is, which is it's a show where people do flips and hit each other, and, you know, we're going to look pretty doing it, and it's going to be kind of hokey and funny and campy. And that, I think, is just on some level what I'm looking for in a next chat season and what I would want to be inhabiting on a week-to-week basis. Whereas Quantum Leap, to me, is a show that, the way that I think about it, rather than like the random episode idea of a Quantum Leap season, I was starting to think it would be really fun to do a Quantum Leap season where it's just always possible that next week we could be talking about Quantum Leap. And sometimes we like randomly leap into an episode of Leap Chats and watch the next 2 episodes of Quantum Leap when we feel like we need that. And maybe we'll do a couple weeks back to back or whatever. And for me, that's the way I would prefer to digest that show, is instead of like this kind of predictable, okay, we're going to watch the whole thing from beginning to end. It's like, well, I have a strong urge to see what the heck Sam Beckett's doing this time. Now I need to like think about that and digest that for about a month before I even touch that show again.
Right.
So my gut check is Xena, with the caveat that like we should cover Quantum Leap in some form or fashion, and we should cover it not in like a Trek Chat style shotgun a season at a time. It should be a sit and watch 2 episodes at a time type of thing. But I would want that format to have some more flexibility or unpredictability, or just like it's parsed out with something else, or we're watching another show and it's every other episode is Quantum Leap versus every other is something else. I don't know. But if we're talking about the next season of Chats, gut check, Xena, Warrior Princess.
Okay. That was a very measured, that was a very reasonable gut check.
Thank you.
For me, it's also Xena. Accessibility is important for me.
Mm-hmm.
Xena was until recently not accessible for me at all. There has been memes about like, oh, obviously Xena wins Couch Madness. Part of the reason that joke is funny is I bought all of Xena, the entire DVD set, and have been watching it from that. And so like I already have an attachment to wanting to watch Xena and covering it with you, and it reminds me of Buffy and talking about Buffy with you in the same ways where like it's a little dumb and it's a little bad feminist and it's a little generic, but when it hits harder than any other show does. And that uncertainty is a little bit more fun to me than the like consistent, the significant consistency of Quantum Leap. And like, here's the other thing. A mediocre episode of Xena is like a kind of boring, but we can find something to talk about it because we're best friends and we have plenty of guests we can have on. The bad episodes of Quantum Leap are like, and I don't know if this episode's actually bad, but I'm telling you, I've read it. The one where he goes into the body of a person with Down syndrome, the multiple episodes where he race jumps into people or gender jumps. Like every once in a while, Quantum Leap is going to be like wildly ambitious with its late 80s, early 90s attempt at gender and race and, you know, mental health politics. And it's probably going to whiff most of those. Like, I'm just going to be real, right? We know that. But would it be fun to podcast those attempts? Sure. That's kind of the question. It's not about it being better or worse, but it's what's more fun to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the very least, like, we don't have a data point yet on what that's like or how good the show is at that. So I'm worried about it, right? And that's like a reservation, because I have the same hunch that you do, but to give Quantum Leap its due, you know, at least the way that Ryan was talking about it, it seems like there are some ways that maybe it's doing those things interestingly or in good faith or whatever. But the fact of the matter is, like, we have not yet seen him do that. And seeing that later in season 1, there's an episode where he's in the body of a black person in a pre-civil rights South. It's like, I don't think so. I don't think I'm ready for that to be what we're doing. So I don't know, but I think Ryan made a really compelling case for the themes of Quantum Leap that we could. I shouldn't be responding to your gut check.
Okay. Yeah, it's a gut check.
It's just your gut check.
Oh my God. I heard the self-awareness just click into your brain for a second there. Like,
I apologize.
It's okay. It's okay. With our gut checks, they're both Xena. Now let's get into it.
Great. The moments, the memes, schemes, screams, and themes. So which had more moments of ironic or semi-ironic silliness? I think this was QL this week.
What's ironic silliness in QL? Give me an example.
When freaking Oscar's like, oh, her lips are so wet, I'm horny. That shit was funny.
Yeah. I do love falling in love with a new himbo every week.
Yeah. It was hilarious when Jamie Lee is like, all right, professor. He's like, you know, trying to tell her to go away. And then he goes to talk to Al, and she flings the curtains open and says, "But this won't change my love for you." That stuff was pretty funny.
I looked up 2 different articles: best episodes of Quantum Leap and worst episodes of Quantum Leap, just to like skim. Buddy, ask me a few more questions, and I'll give you a few of these on both ends.
What are a few more of those on both ends?
Okay. Best episode number 9. Sam lands in the body of a Navy fighter pilot in the 50s, charged with the rape and murder of his CO's wife. Whoa.
Okay.
Whoa.
Interesting.
Okay. And then we go to worst episode. As a backup singer in a black amateur girl group, Sam finds between the 15-year-old lead singer and her father as he attempts to rescue the girl from a sleazy nightclub owner's clutches. Sam takes a dramatic turn when he begins sleeping throughout the life of Lee Harvey Oswald.
Oh, you didn't know that? You didn't know that?
No, I probably knew that at some point.
Yeah, I've heard of that one.
Is that bad? I'm confused. This is confused things for me.
I don't know. I mean, I think the point of Quantum Leap is that it's taking big swings. Big swings. And on some level, I respect the hustle, but on some level, it's like, I don't want to watch you do that.
Okay.
I don't think.
Okay, next question.
About these or the things that we do?
Oh, I thought we were already about the next category that we picked.
Schemes. More moments of intrigue and plot movement.
It's Quantum Leap.
I think that's Quantum Leap. Screams, moments of excitement and surprise.
I think that's Quantum Leap.
Yeah, this is tough. Themes, more moments addressing what the show's about. I think that's Quantum Leap too. This is the problem, right? This is the problem.
What's happening? Yeah.
I think it was more discussable television. It was like better television.
Fuck.
And we're coming into it with like kind of a confirmation bias. I don't know. But anyway. Clunks, hunks, junks, and punks. The clunks, which had characters that were dorkier in a fun way.
Quantum Leap.
I don't know. I thought Gabrielle was a bit of a clunk in a way that I really liked.
She's a high tier clunk. She is a high tier clunk.
To me, this one's Xena. There weren't really clunks for me in Quantum Leap.
Yeah, I guess dorky is not the word I would use.
Hunks.
I think that's Xena. Yep. I think everyone's a little hot. Everyone's a little grimy, but that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
A couple messy boys and girls.
The junks, characters that were more eccentric in a fun way. Or
Which
like kind of, the random side character sort of people.
I think that's Quantum Leap.
Yeah, I think so too.
Between our 4 main cast and Al,
Yeah. And then the punks, characters that were more rebellious in a fun way.
Oh, that's Xena. It's the 90s. Nobody's rebellious in the 80s except Marty McFly.
Marty McFly. Foundations, the clues, crews, hues, and choose. Clues, which has more plot to explore and unravel over time. I think that's Quantum Leap.
Quantum Leap.
Crews, which has more ensemble dynamics to dig into.
That's Xena.
I like the Xena pair more than the Quantum Leap pair.
Agreed.
Hues, more thematic range. I mean, just on range as the word, it's Quantum Leap, I believe.
Yeah.
Shoes, tough call. More mileage from its base premise.
I think Xena hasn't even begun to explore its base premise yet. I think there's so much more room there.
Greek mythology stuff, like we know that there's a lot more going on.
Both of these have a ton of mileage in their base premise, but like, yeah, I agree.
All right, the fits, better use of costumes and props.
Oh, that's tough.
I kind of want to give it to Quantum Leap because like all the bad guys in the Xena were this weird like Mongolian thing.
Yeah,
but then it's like a bunch of white guys wearing dreads and stuff.
Yeah, they get the 70s down really good in Quantum Leap.
Better use of music. I enjoyed the Xena music. I like made special note of that.
I like the Xena soundtrack more. I like the Quantum Leap theme song more. So I give that to Xena as well.
Okay. Better use of the cast and guests. That's Quantum Leap. Terry Hatcher.
Yeah. I was making a reference to the GameCube game Billy Hatcher and the Giant Egg. For people earlier who are like, why did Alan say Terry Hatcher and the Giant Egg for the GameCube? That's why.
Better use of the script and writing.
Quantum Leap, for sure.
Oy. All right.
Oy.
4, 5, 6, 8, 10. This is a classic 10-6 situation. Quantum Leap 10, Xena 6 that we're looking at here.
What do we do now, Magellan? What's the next step?
I I mean,
it's like falling in love. You go against all of your best instincts. Oh my God, sorry. Just like, check this out. Oh my God. Oh, fuck me, Magellan. Oh my God, I'm gonna see something so crazy right now. Oh God. Just like Sam Beckett decides to fix his relationship with Donna instead of taking care of the plot of the show, I feel a pull towards my passion to watch and discuss Xena with you, despite my better judgment telling me that maybe Quantum Leap would make for a better podcast, being a slightly shorter show with a little bit more density to its writing. I think sometimes you just have to go for the thing that makes you happy.
But then we're going to be trapped and we're not going to be able to leap because we didn't do the right thing.
We're going to be stuck in Xena World. That's true. That is true. I mean, I really do like your idea of, like, we don't feel like watching Xena this week. Xena's been bad for a few weeks. We're watching Quantum Leap. Like, just plop.
Yeah,
it's a leap week.
That to me sounds
leap week.
Perfect. Leap week. Ah, fuck, it's a leap year. Shit, it's a leap year.
John, but you have to understand, like, Xena. Do you know who Callisto is? Callisto? From Xena?
Maybe. I don't know.
She has, like, a cool, badass blonde woman who is like one of the main villains of the show, one of the arcs of the show. Here's a picture of her with Xena, by the way, just for context.
Okay.
Xena attacked Callisto's village and killed her parents when Callisto was a kid, and now she's grown up trying to be the evil counterpart to Xena. So she runs around the countryside hurting people and telling them that she's Xena. And Xena's like, what the fuck?
Cool. That's cool.
Yeah. I went on this whole arc to become a hero, and you've decided that I'm not. And there's like a ton of gay tension between them. Like a ton.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Let me okay. Let me read the description of the next episode of Xena and see.
Okay. I read it last week. Yeah, go ahead.
To see if this speaks to me here.
Yeah.
I like that she had a little circle blade. When Gabrielle is kidnapped by a mystic, Xena enters an altered state of consciousness and must face ghosts from her past in order to rescue her friend. Okay, that sounds pretty good.
Gabrielle is kidnapped to become the bride of Morpheus, the god of dreams. So Xena has to go through her dreamscape passage to save her friend.
Whoa! Where are you getting your descriptions from?
IMDb.
That's way better than the fucking Prime Video one.
I'm trying not to spoil it, I guess.
Morpheus,
the god of dreams, the dreamscape passage. I'm crying, listener. I'm crying. This is such a hard decision. What's the next Quantum Leap?
Okay, let me
give him his due diligence.
Let me get on freaking Peacock. I mean, that's the other problem is I do not want to keep paying for or using Peacock. All the ads that I got were garbage into my brain, and I don't know. That's a bad reason to make this decision. As a young boxer in 1974, hopeful nuns owned Sam's contract. What?
What? Prime ones are so bad. Sam leaps into a boxer that is owned by a convent of nuns who need him to win a boxing match to finance their new chapel. Ooh, how does Quantum Leap handle religion?
Interesting. That definitely sounds less intriguing to me than the Xena episode.
Yeah, sure. Occasionally Xena gets to get stupid and we go to the dreamscape.
Right.
But as we now have seen twice, Quantum Leap can surprise with an okay sounding premise and turn it into something special.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's time.
Oh God, this is tough.
Do you want a little bit extra time? Do you want to talk about some stuff? What else do you want to feel? How can I make this decision easier?
I don't know. I think on some level I feel bad about coming in with like a want for something to win, and then in the face of 2 episodes where one makes for better conversation and is better, and we rank it better on all the metrics, I'm like, yeah, and I think what I initially thought is probably right, and I don't want to change my mind. But also the
show.
Yeah, and the affection that I have for Xena, like you were saying, kind of goes beyond the quality of the individual episode and is more like, where do I want to like spend time hanging out with my friend from week to week?
Oh.
And like, we're not Sam and Al, we're Xena and Gabrielle. That's who we are.
That's
you know
us.
what I mean?
Absolutely. Which one's which?
I'm Xena, you're Gabrielle.
Fair enough.
Do you agree?
The fact that I so quickly said fair enough answers the question.
I think the attachment styles match up. Xena and I are avoidant attachment.
Fucking heck. Sorry.
Okay. I've sat with it. I feel better about it.
It's like in my throat.
I'm going to type my answer into the chat.
I just need to think about this. Like, I want to...
Okay.
The other thing I'm trying not to do is, like, to worry about disappointing anybody. Because ultimately, this is our show. People will like what we choose to cover as long as we are happy doing it and not miserable. We have been told things like Xena gets way more, like, multiple season-long plots than you think it does. It's not just a villain of the week story. Quantum Leap, as Ryan said, does start to answer some bigger questions over time. And...
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
It is shorter. I just want to reemphasize that.
Yeah. It is shorter, and also it does still feel true to me. Like, okay, Quantum Leap has 97 episodes, more or less. So that's a year of Quantum Leap. It's a leap year. It's a leap year.
The Quantum Leap year.
We can't let Quantum Leap lose in a leap year. Anyway. It's about a year long. Xena is 134. So that cut in half is 67. It's like a year and a half or so. To me, I would rather experience a year and a half of sequential Xena episodes and discussions than a straight year of Quantum Leap discussions. I can't really explain that too much. Because to me, I think there's like this feeling of warmth in the experience of watching Xena, and like a kind of I don't know what the word is, but it calls back to, like you were saying, when we used to watch Buffy together. It's got kind of a Farscapey feel to me, and it's a thing that I would enjoy sitting with and sitting in for a long period of time. Whereas I think Quantum Leap, something about how unpredictable it is and how much there is to get into makes the prospect of watching it for a year back to back to back to back sound a little intimidating. Just as like someone who is going to go through the experience of doing the podcast.
Can I say one more thing that I think is going to lock this in for both of us?
Okay.
We do a sci-fi podcast every 6 weeks. We are going to watch DS9 soon. Do we want 2 sci-fi shows, or do we want a fantasy and a sci-fi show together? Is that a fun dichotomy for chats to have, or do we temporarily become a sci-fi podcast, hardcore? Also, Quantum Leap is sci-fi in the traditional sense of the word, but it's not like, starships and lasers the way that Star Trek can be. It's time travel and emotionally resonant plot lines, and that's a fun form of sci-fi. But I think I have my decision, and I want to let the council know that when we unlock this door, that we worked hard and we used our expert methodology and we talked through it. You have all the evidence to prove that. We had good help from Ryan, we had good feedback from the folks in the Discord, and that I come to this decision with a clear mind and a clear heart, and that I'm really on the verge of crying right now. But I've made my decision. Are you ready, Magellan?
I'm ready.
3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, let's read.
Let's examine what's happened here, folks. And something has occurred. Go ahead. What happened?
Okay, so Alan said Xena Warrior Lesbians, which I love and I'm with. And I said Xena Warrior Princess, but we have to do an episode of Leap Chats that comes out on Leap Day. We have to.
Sure. Let's watch episodes 3 and 4 of Quantum Leap on Leap Day.
Yeah, we if we don't do that, I feel like it's podcasting malpractice. Quite frankly.
And every 4 years we can do more than just
we only watch Quantum Leap every 4. No, I'm just kidding.
No, that'd be ridiculous.
That's me. But anytime there is a Leap Day, we have to. Like, if we still haven't gotten to it in 4 years, we're gonna watch episodes 5 and 6.
Yeah,
that is the chat's guarantee.
If we haven't done more. Yeah.
We will release Leap Chats episodes no slower than 1 episode every 4 years.
1 episode covering 2 episodes. Don't worry about that.
Correct. And you can take that to the bank. Okay.
Amazing. I can't wait to watch the episode. Check this out. In the season 2 finale, Sam leaps into the body of Jane Rollins, a new detective in San Diego in 1969. Al and Ziggy tell Sam he has to stop a young woman, Beth, from falling for another man while her husband is MIA in Vietnam. You're like, okay, that's fine. Despite the initial humor of Sam finding himself in a dress and raging against being in a woman's body, He then realizes that he's actually leaped into a man who is undercover in women's clothes.
Okay.
Apparently that episode's actually good. That's in best episodes. I'm not reading everything that happens in it. It gets like more emotional. And people say that the Down syndrome episode is not bad, which I know. It's going to be about how bigotry is bad and it's not fair. We need to empathize with people. And that's great. But
I'll keep my heart open to it.
But Xena's going to the Dreamscape next week against SG-1.
Yeah, not next week, but yeah.
Sorry, next round.
Next round.
Xena's going to the Dreamscape in 4 weeks. Shit. Or actually like 5 because we have a Truck Chats in there. Anyways. Hoy. Congratulations to Xena Warrior Princess for winning your matchup in Couch Madness. Quantum Leap, you are such a contender that we are yanking you forward into the leap year in the end of February. Yes, we'll be seeing you in a month. Sam Beckett, you better bring your fucking A game because you could change history. This is your chance to time travel, Sam. You and Al could go back and make us go, wait, we make the wrong show and make us that's not going to happen. But they could. How about that?
Go back in time to this episode. Okay, yeah, that's fun. I like that.
And we edit the episode.
Okay.
We're actually going to release 2 versions of the podcast. We're going to A/B test it.
Yeah, good. That's good.
One where Quantum Leap wins, and that's the Sam Beckett timeline. And then it's like Majora's Mask, where in the other one, Ganon dies. No.
They're actually 5 length, and each of them is the son of a previous link.
The other one was Ganon, and now but before he was called fucking, what was he called in the first game? I don't know. Grumpo?
Grumpo. I think he was called Grumpo. Yeah,
next time on Couch Madness is a fucking wild matchup. We are continuing.
This is just pure comedy.
Literally. And I'm happy to have a calmer matchup after this one. This is the longest Couch Madness episode so far, as it should be. But next week, we are continuing to cover The Tick, 1994, 2000s, and 2016 versus the rebooted Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah. And this is the second half of the Battlestar Galactica miniseries, right?
Yes.
Or did we watch the whole? Yeah. We just watched part 1.
Well, didn't we say it was like the whole first night? That's the rule?
Yeah.
Because the thing is, we were supposed to have watched more than I actually watched because I've watched it before. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. So we watched part 1 of the miniseries, and we're going to watch part 2 of the miniseries, which will be about as long as the 3 Tick episode 2s.
So much TV. So little time.
TV. Yeah.
Good luck to, I don't know. Name me any character from Battlestar Galactica. Dr. Gaius Baltar. Sure. Magellan, moving it on. Where can people find you and your voice on the internet?
You can find me on another podcast called Super Smash Echoes that I do with my friend Justin, where we discuss video games related to the Super Smash Brothers franchise. You can also read my writing on my Substack at notthatmagellan.substack.com. Alan, what about you?
Yeah, that's right, Magellan. You can hear me on a few other shows. I'm on Scanline Media over on the Creature Quorum, where we're doing the Unova Tourism Committee, playing through Gen 5 of Pokemon 1 badge at a time. We should have just released episode 2, and I'm already prepping episode 3, where we go to the first major city in that game. I'm also on the Garnet Wager, which just released a new episode featuring the voice of Magellan as Magarden Miracle, one of the most fan-beloved side characters of that show. And an episode of the Garnet Wager that even if you don't care about our silly lore on that show, you get to hear me like cry laughing while we talk about where in the world is Carmen Sandiego. It's a very, very giggly episode, and I think you'd like it. That's the Garnet Wager on Scanline Media. Last but not least, I'm on Talking Marketing every other month on amaboston.org. Hoy, even episode, but you do it, right? This is your week to do plugs, sir.
I believe so. You can get in touch with the show in a few different ways. You can email us at chatspot@gmail.com with any questions, comments, concerns, suggestions. If you want to be on the show, let us know if there's a particular matchup that you want to join us for. If you want to cast your vote and give us some rationale or even record a little clip of yourself, we would love to include that sort of thing. You can find us, follow us at ChatsPod on X/Twitter. We are also on YouTube, Chats, a television podcast on YouTube. All of our past episodes are there, as well as it is a place where the RSS feed sends current episodes. So you could just be a YouTube listener if you want to do that. And if you are a YouTube listener, we'd appreciate, a subscribe, a like, a share, a comment, all of those things. You know how this stuff works. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. If you listen elsewhere, like Apple Podcasts or something like that, and you want to give us a rating, we would appreciate that. And of course, you can support the show with some doll hairs, specifically about $5, $3, or $1 worth of doll hairs. At $1 a month, you get access to our Discord, where we talk about all of these shows and which ones chats and which ones should not. And that's kind of my Bob Dylan thing. Whatever. $3 a month gets you access to twice monthly bonus content on our Patreon. Bonus episodes such as pilot chats of TV shows, or commentary chats of movies, or just chats nights where we jaw and talk and have a great old time. And $5 a month gets you thanked right here at the end of every episode. Thank you to our $5 patrons, who include Stefan, Six, Noel, Nick, and Pat of the Brothers at Infinite War, my mom, May Louise, Marcus, Lee, Kyrie, Justin, Jen, Felicia, Emrys, and Arthur. Thank you, folks, for supporting the show. Thank you also to @Camillustrator for creating our podcast art. Alan, now is the time to give folks something to chew on between now and next time. A chatsum. What's your chatsum for this week?
My chatsum is a pretty simple recommendation. It's a podcast that I've been listening to for a few months now. So way back in the day, I listened to the Slash Filmcast regularly. We're talking like 2009, 2000 to 2011 or 2012. That was my era. And I loved Dave Devindra and Adam's discussions of films, popular films and otherwise. And I was always interested, like, I should really watch Inglourious Bastards and have thoughts about it like these guys. And I stopped listening to it, partly because I disagreed with them a lot, and partly because I wasn't watching the movies with them. And I was like, okay, I'm like learning about films I want to see, but I'm getting spoiled and I'm not watching them, and it's bad, right? Dave Chen, one of the hosts of the Slash Filmcast, nowadays is kind of managing his own personal brand with his Decoding Everything Substack, and specifically his podcast Decoding TV, which he co-hosts with Jesse Earl from Jesse Gender and Patrick Klepek from Remap Radio. And he alternates hosts. And what's clever is they just did a reboot of Decoding TV, where they talk about TV news and TV shows without getting too deep into spoilers in their reviews. And they talk about multiple ones, and they prep people ahead of time, like, hey, here's what we're going to watch next week. Because they got the complaint that they were talking about stuff that nobody else was watching. So I found them again because I've been reading Dave's work for a while, and I was looking for coverage of Showtime's The Curse. And they did a great season on The Curse. And, I consider them, I guess, our peers. They're obviously a little bit more successful than we are, but they're doing TV stuff. They're doing TV recaps. They mostly focus on modern stuff, which I think is really cool. And you all know I like to keep up with modern TV. So definitely check out Decoding TV. They're doing this whole watching, a couple episodes of a show and talking about it thing really freaking well. That's my chatsum. What about you?
Nice. Mine is a book that I started reading recently that I've been enjoying chewing on some of the lines from it. It's a book called Poetry as Insurgent Art by Lawrence Ferlinghetti. Lawrence Ferlinghetti is a pretty important figure in the history of American poetry. He founded City Lights, a bookstore in San Francisco, and then a publisher as well.
Wow.
And he was the person who published Allen Ginsberg's Howl, and was arrested as part of the obscenity case that had to do with Howl, just for a little context of where he's at. And Poetry as Insurgent Art is essentially just like a book full of quotes that he writes about, what he thinks about kind of the way to approach doing poetry, or what poetry could mean, or what it can do in the world. And your mileage may vary in terms of how you feel about it's very hard on its sleeve, and very poetry's going to save the world, or roll up your sleeves and get dirty and do this and whatever. So I don't know, some people might like that or be swayed by that less than I am. And there are definitely moments of it where I'm kind of like, nah, I don't love the way that that's phrased. But on every single page of this thing, there's at least 2 quotes where I have to sort of close the book and chew on it for a few minutes. So, and it's it's a small volume, fits in your pocket. You can kind of flip it open on the train and read a couple pages and think about that for the rest of the day. Poetry as Insurgent Art by Lawrence Ferlinghetti. I think it's just a good addition to a personal book collection, and just a pretty cool little volume. So yeah.
You really could just read poetry books for the rest of your life if you wanted to, and they would all be amazing. There's so many good ones.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I did not know that. I was a big fan of City Lights when I visited San Francisco 2 years ago. I bought The Sun Also Rises there, and I think Slaughterhouse-Five.
Very cool.
Great bookstore. Lawrence Ferlinghetti. Awesome. Insurgent Art. We love to see it. Magellan, that's what we got for now, though. We hope you enjoyed the matchup. Let us know what you thought about our controversial pick. We hope that you enjoyed the ep. And thank you to Magellan for being both the Al and both the Xena and the Sam to my Al and Gabrielle. Gabriellen.
Whoa.
And thank you all for listening to Couch Madness. Goodbye.
Bye.